The Rating Room.
Welcome back to the Rating Room, or the Rating Room Extra, I guess you could call it. But either way, we're going to be talking about Dexter Season 4. Now, we've already gone through the first 6 episodes. Those of you who have checked those out, thank you for listening. I'm sure you're wondering, well, what happened next? Well, that's what we're about to find out as we go back into Dexter Season 4. Jay, why don't you kick us off with part 2 of this episode?
Thank you, Andy. So episode 7, Slack Tide. So things kick off here where an arm is found in an alligator. Very strange. And it looks like the victim was bound and the arm was bitten post-mortem. When this first happened, I did originally think, is this a body part of previous murder victim of one of Dexter's? Now, Dexter and Arthur plan to meet up the following morning, and we see Dexter and Quinn clash over the Deb and the journalist again.
Yeah, there's games being played, aren't there, between Dexter and Quinn, and this adds to my earlier question, or my question from part 1 of this 2-part episode. Is Quinn the new Dokes? Because they do seem to be having this bit of a rivalry, and I would say I don't really know who's on top at this stage. You know, who's winning over who, but they're definitely at loggerheads for various reasons. Now, the murder suspect is brought in for questioning, and Dexter watches the interrogation. Now, later on, we see Deb move into Dexter's old apartment, so that's a problem solved. And Deb reveals to Dexter that she's continuing Lundy's investigation into the Trinity Killer. If you remember, of course, the case was closed, wasn't it, in a previous episode? Because I think they ruled it a suicide, didn't they? The Thaler jumping from the building.
Yes, indeed, and I think it's good on Deb to carry on the investigation. Obviously, she loved Lundy, but it's not good news for Dexter though that his sister is continuing to chase and investigate the Trinity Killer. Now, Dexter and Arthur meet up again, so things are very, very friendly between these two at the moment, and they go for a drive. Now, they plan to cut down a tree. Arthur seems agitated after he can't start the chainsaw, and this is not like Arthur. Well, this is not like the Arthur that we've seen so far. He's really snappy with Dexter too. Something isn't right with him. Now, in addition to being a serial killer, Arthur accidentally hits a deer with the van, and he can't kill the deer. So Dexter actually steps up.
Yeah, it's a weird dichotomy, isn't it? The fact that he's a serial killer, has been for multiple decades now, but he's injured this deer with his van, needs to be put out of his misery, but he can't do it. And Dexter, in his inner monologue, says he spent his life killing innocent people, but he can't kill Bambi. Which I thought was an amusing line. Meanwhile, Dexter goes to the photographer's studio. There are other cases on, and he wants to investigate to see whether there are any links to the missing girls. And he finds a fingernail that belongs to the murder victim. Now, aside from this as well, Deb is still investigating. What, investigating? Yeah, I suppose she's investigating Harry, because, there's been this long-going thing about him and his informers and what may or may not happened in the past, because he cheated on his mum, he cheated on her mum. And it looks like he had quite a few girlfriends by the sounds of it.
Yes, he was a Casanova, based on what we hear and see over this season. Now, Dexter goes to check out the photographer, and we see Quinn is following Dexter. So, as Andy mentioned earlier, Quinn seems to be like another Dokes, because obviously Dokes was always following Dexter as well. And Dexter is about to follow the photographer, but spots Quinn, and he sends some random woman to talk to Quinn, and Quinn really quickly to give him some credit here, realizes that Dexter stitched him. So, like I said, this is just Dokes all over again. Now, Andy, I know I've mentioned it earlier on, and I mentioned it in the season 3, But I just don't like Quinn at all. I just don't think he's very likeable.
There's something about him, isn't he? He's quite a nice guy at times, or seemingly, and the way he sticks up for Deb at times, you think is quite admirable. But then he's got this dodgy side, hasn't he? It doesn't add up. And now this thing with him and Dexter, this kind of, I don't know what it is that they're doing. It's kind of a dick measuring contest that they seem to be playing out between them. But yeah, I'm on the fence about him at this stage. But back to Dexter's personal life. He's been signed up for a trip, some sort of like camping trip, isn't it? I think I want to say it's like Sailor Club. So they're camping near the boats, and they're around a campfire and they're telling scary stories to the kids, as you do around a campfire and those kind of things. Dexter thinks, I've got a story that I can tell the kids, and it's a story about the Trinity Killer. And the bloke who's running the camp kind of steps in and finishes the story off, doesn't he, to make it a bit more light-hearted, but he just doesn't get it at all.
No, but he just can't read the room. Dexter can't. Now, Dexter sneaks off from the camping trip because he's got a to-do list here, and he goes to the photographer's studio, and he does kill the photographer, and he dumps his body in the sea. Now, we cut then to Arthur, and we see that he's made a coffin, which is a bit weird. Is it part of his ritual? We're going to find out, but he's got some good woodworking skills here.
At least they've put that tree to good use, so that they cut down on the woods, so, very very friendly to the earth by making use of its natural materials. And then we get to the end of the episode, and Dexter arrives at work, and he sees that the photographer's personal assistant has been arrested. Dexter has killed an innocent person. He has fucked up big time. And that innocent person is the one kill of episode 7 that Dexter has.
Yeah, it's like a one kill with an asterisk, because he's an innocent, as Andy mentioned. Now, straight into episode 8, this is titled Roadkill. Now, Dexter is coming to terms with murdering the wrong guy.
Yeah, he even breaks the blood slide that he's got for him, and he cuts himself. I made the note here that the blood is going to mix, isn't it? So hepatitis is calling.
Hope he's had his jabs. Now, the police department are now investigating the photographer missing person case as well now, so Dexter he just can't get a break, this bloke.
Speaking of getting a break, Deb is giving a presentation about the Hammer murders. However, she's left in a slide about one of the bath victims. So this means that she ends up talking through the Lundy investigation. So this was, I don't know whether this was accidental or not, but it's certainly a door has been opened somehow.
Yeah, and, talking of the Trinity Killer, we see Arthur with his newly made coffin. And like I said, he's good at woodworking, good bit of craftsmanship there. And like I said, is this part of his ritual or not? We don't know at this stage. Now, Dexter goes to visit Arthur, and we see Arthur, he's very edgy with his kids. And Arthur, wife comments that Arthur comes back from his out-of-town work relaxed. So this kind of killing ritual seems to calm him down. And is he getting is he getting snappy because he needs to kill again? And that cycle is starting.
Yeah, it can be very agitating, can't it? Sorry, cheap shot there. But yeah, the out-of-town stuff is interesting because we now find out that Arthur is off to Tampa. So Dexter needs a reason to go to Tampa. So what does he come up with? A meteorological conference. And he pitches that to Maria, and she's just so bored by this pitch that she's like, yeah, whatever, just go. Quite amusing how he's got this passion for the weather and how the weather can help him catch serial killers or whatever. But there you go. Meanwhile, I said the door was open for Deb. It's not, because she's taken off the case involving the Trinity Killer. She talks to Dexter about it, and I don't know how he responds, but it's not helpful anyway. And she says to him, and this is a quote, "I love you, bro, but sometimes you're a fucking tard."
Good old Deb always knows what's to say, doesn't she, that girl? Now, Arthur, we see, takes a sample of his sister's ashes with him to Tampa, and he's just about to leave when Dexter stops him, and he's trying to get a lift with Arthur to go to Tampa, and he's proper laying it on thick with Arthur, and says he needs help and everything, and he just needs Arthur's support, and you could tell he's getting on Arthur's nerves, but I feel like Dexter's put him in a position where he can't really say no because he's trying to maintain his cover.
Yeah, it's a weird one because he needs to come across as the Good Samaritan, but clearly he needs to get away because he doesn't want people around him. But my question about Dexter's logic at this stage was that why didn't he just drive himself? Because, everyone knows he's going to Tampa, so why not just drive there and he can claim the mileage? But also, it would mean he could surprise Arthur because he wouldn't know that he's going to be there.
Yeah, I agree totally, Andy. He could have been a lot more covert here. He's not really... I don't know if he's just so confident or overconfident in his ability here that he can just dispatch Arthur. It just doesn't work out. Now, there are things happening in the office as well with the Trinity Killer case. And Masuka steals the scene here because he makes a comment about toilet paper for coffee filters. And I don't remember the quote, but it did make me chuckle.
He's just he's the class clown, or he's the office clown in this stage, isn't it? But yeah, every scene he's in, he seems to steal. I'm a big fan of the Masuka character. But back to Miami, or should that be the journey from Miami to Tampa? Dexter's in the car with Arthur. He's talking a lot. He's really getting on Arthur's nerves. There's a scene where they stop there at a picnic bench, and Arthur's just getting so stressed out with Dexter. It's really quite amusing, and Arthur's getting really annoyed because there's loads of questions, but then he's also really vague when Arthur asks him questions. I made a note to myself that Dexter is a lousy passenger. But of note, one of the things that Dexter does reveal is that he accidentally killed someone while hunting. So there's a bit of a confession of sorts from Dexter to Arthur.
Yeah, that's very shocking. This reveal was. Now, Arthur has a surprise for Dexter as well, and now Arthur is in a really good mood. So I don't know, he's bipolar or something, but he has some serious mood swings here, Andy. Good old Arthur.
Yeah, back at the office, maybe LaGuerta and Batista are not split up after all because they're getting it on in the office. Very risky business, that is.
Yeah, so Andy, you know what you said about the journalist turning up at Quinn's place? There's just something here about her, but I don't remember what the twist was. So I knew that she was more than just kind of like a flame for Quinn, but I just couldn't piece things together at this point in time. And I think, because we've obviously watched this again, if my memory's working for me, I think it's the next episode where it's kind of fitted in, but kind of everything kind of comes back to me. But this episode, I just can't recall what it is. Could you remember what it was about her? And if so, when was it that you kind of thought, oh, that's what it is?
Jumping ahead in my notes, I like you figured something out in the next episode. At this stage, I would say I'm blissfully unaware, but clearly she's up to no good. I think at this stage I just wondered whether she's just trying to be nice so that she can get some more information out of Quinn, and she's just doing what journalists do, allegedly. So yeah, let's see how that unfolds. But I'm probably a step behind you in terms of my memory of this. But speaking of dodgy relationships, let's go back to Rita, because the next door neighbour is getting quite friendly with Rita and the kids. And I made a note here, and it's very, very funny. I just don't remember why. But there's something fishy going on. If you pick up what I'm putting down?
I do, Andy. A very little nice pun there from yourself.
Been a few days since I actually watched the episode, so I can't remember exactly. Is it something to do with like the fish dinner or something, or they've been fishing? But
yeah, he went fishing with the kids.
Yeah, he's a
Cody
bit of a slime ball,
she
isn't he?
caught one. Yeah, definitely. Now, going back to Arthur and Dexter. Arthur takes Dexter to his old family home and he starts to tell Dexter about his sister. And it turns out his sister had an accident in the shower and fell through the glass and died. Now, this led to the mother killing herself, and Dexter believes that Arthur then killed his own father. And Arthur says that these two are very much alike, which is kind of going back to Dexter, kind of his whole mission in terms of getting close to Arthur was finding out how he managed to keep the family life and his kind of bloodthirst, his dark passenger, happy as well. Now, it's funny because Arthur then ambushes his random family in a cafe. It's very weird. Now, they do go to a hardware store as well, and they need to pick up a few different supplies.
Yeah, very weird scene in the cafe, isn't it? He's very unhinged. It's a good thing Dexter's there, really, isn't it, to kind of help him out of that sticky situation. Speaking of sticky situations, this could have been a sticky situation because of what Deb does in front of Masuka. She strips down to a bra because she wants to show the wound off, and asks Masuka, how tall would the shooter have to be based on her gunshot wound? Now, you mentioned in part 1 of this episode, and it was in an early episode of the season, where obviously Lundy dies from his gunshot wound, but Deb's is a through and through, as I believe they call it in the police glossary. And they work out that the shooter's probably about the same height as Masuka, which is clearly not the same height as the vacation killers, I want to say. So they're back on the case. Or more specifically, Deb is back on the case now.
Deb is, she is a good police detective, isn't she? Really, she does get a bit of stick, but she does prove herself throughout the series numerous times.
She's unorthodox in some of her approaches, and certainly in the way she words things and how she communicates with people. But deep down, things like this, you get the sense that she's very, very good at her job.
Going back to Rita, she's a bit tipsy. She's having dinner with the neighbour. Things are looking a bit too cosy here. Now, the kids are asleep as well. Now, meanwhile, Dexter's setting up his kill room in the bathroom of his hotel. So he's planning to kill Arthur. Then he goes to Arthur's room, but Arthur isn't there. So he manages to track him down, and Arthur is stood at the building's edge here, and it looks like he's going to jump. But he scatters his sister's ashes before trying to fall off the building, and Dexter saves him. Now, jumping to the end of how this season finishes, Andy, if he let him fall, things would have been very, very different for Dexter. And I know Dexter can be a bit selfish here because he wants to kill people himself and he doesn't want Deb or the police to catch the killers. But this would have been a perfect kind of like scenario to let Arthur just fall to his death.
Yeah, it's a strange one, isn't it? Because why? And I'm not sure. It's been a little while since we watched it for the second time. But why does he save him? Is it purely because Dexter wants to be the one to kill him, or does he think that if Arthur dies there and Dexter's there as well, he'll be somehow tied to it? So is it just a way to cover his tracks? It's really odd. It's really odd because ultimately, shouldn't the end goal be that Arthur dies? Does it matter that it has to be by Dexter's hand in Dexter's routine? I don't know. The logic is a little bit off for me.
Yeah, I take it that he wants to be the one that kills Arthur, and therefore his blood sample can make it into his collection. So he wants to do the deed. So, because I think, in terms of if he did fall to death, I know he could just make a quick escape, couldn't he? And just say, and anyone would just think it's Kyle Butler Butler.
Yeah,
Butler.
Carl Butler. Yeah.
So I think it's purely selfishness, really, from Dexter. But anyway, because he doesn't die, and there's no other kills, Dexter has 0 kills in this episode.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what the final kill count is, because seemingly low so far. But let's move on to episode 9, titled Hungry Man. We see Arthur breaking some of Jonah's awards. Jonah zooms off in his car, Dexter follows him, and Jonah starts to smash up the car. And then Jonah says that Arthur beats him. And he also says that Dexter should have let his dad die. And then somehow ends up getting invited to Thanksgiving as Jonah's guest. So now he's double booked.
Poor Dexter. Now, the journalist does arrive at the station to give Quinn some leftovers. Now, she's in the crime room as well with lots of photos on the boards. And for this scene, this scene just wasn't very confidential at all. And I suppose it goes back to your earlier point, Andy, with Rita just going up to the floor without being challenged. And now the journalist has gone up there and just goes into the kill room to see all this evidence.
Yeah, if Rita can get in there, who else is going to be able to get in there without any problems? Well, we may or may not find out. But we move on to a scene with Quinn and Christine. That's the journalist's name, Christine. I did write it down eventually. I don't need to explain what happens in this scene, because I can just give you a quote from my wife, who was watching it with me. And her exact quote was, "Does she have to have her tits out in every scene?"
Yes, Andy, she does.
The writers wrote it that way for a reason, for artistic merit, I'm sure. But no complaints from me, as will be reflected in my rating later on, because she gets extra points for her points. But anyway, before we get us cancelled, let's move on. Christine tells Deb that she's very sorry about what happened to her. And this is where my spidey senses started tingling. Like, something is going on here, isn't there?
Indeed, Andy. I think it's all coming together now with Christine. Now, going back to Dexter, let's get back to the main folks here. Dexter is arriving at Arthur's house, and it's a bit awkward here. And then we cut to see Deb and Masuka arrive at Dexter's house, and he's not there. And it's Thanksgiving dinner. So I think it's quite funny that both Masuka and Deb have gone there, but Dexter isn't there. So I think that's a funny little situation.
It's very weird, isn't it? I mean, I guess there's nothing to worry about because Elliot's going to be there. But I do want to just insert a question in at this point. Because if memory serves correctly, Dexter's excuse for not being there at the time that Masuka and Deb are is something work-related, I believe. So why would Rita not think it's weird that Deb and Masuka are there, but he's not? But then, if they question Deb and Masuka about this work thing, they're not going to know about it. So it feels like Dexter's really taking a risk here by not getting his story straight.
Yeah, that's a good point, Andy. And I've not wrote anything down here to kind of either back up your comment here or kind of provide the answer, really. So I think moving on here, things are very tense at the Mitchell's house because Dexter, he just needs to hurry up and kill Arthur for me, because it's just going on far too long. And we also see Batista and Leguetta as well go to this care home, some kind of hospital, to deliver some good news to the widow about the murder victim as well. So some positivity on Thanksgiving Day.
Yes, we mustn't forget that there are other crimes being committed and investigated throughout this to kind of keep the subplots going. But back at the Thanksgiving that Dexter is at, which is at Arthur's house, he comes across the coffin in Arthur's garage. Bit weird. Jonah then appears with his car all smashed up. And meanwhile, Deb has figured out that the kill pattern matches the school year. So there's a lot of pieces now falling together across multiple stories, multiple characters. It's all starting to come together quite nicely now.
Yeah, it is, Andy. Now, Dexter goes to help the girls do the dinner, and he notices Arthur locks up his daughter. So very weird. And it turns out Arthur's family are terrified of him. So Dexter's just kind of seeing the other side of Arthur now. Well, there's multiple sides to Arthur, and he's kind of finding out a little bit more during this Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah, we then go to I thought was a really, really disturbing scene. So Arthur and Jonah are watching football, which I think is traditional at Thanksgiving, and they have a big football game. That would be American football, as we would call it. It should really be called hand egg, but that's another conversation for another time, because it's not a ball and you don't use your feet. But let's not get into that. But they're watching the big game, and they high five. Arthur and Jonah high five. This is how I wrote it. But what happens is Arthur catches Jonah's hand and purposefully breaks one of his fingers, and it is grim. I mean, of all the killing and the nastiness and the gore that we've seen throughout Dexter, this is one of the scenes that was probably the most unsettling to me so far. And it's seemingly out of nowhere, because it seemed on the surface, they've kissed and made up, and things are back to normal, whatever normal is. But then this happens, and it's really, really weird. Meanwhile, Rebecca, the daughter, she tries to seduce and kiss Dexter, and I think she's underage, if memory serves correct. I don't know if her age is ever confirmed, but I think it's implied that she's still of school age. And the vibe I got from this scene was that she was trying to seduce Dexter to stop him from speaking out, or get him to protect her from Arthur or something. But it's really weird. This family is messed up.
Yeah, you mentioned about the finger breaking being disturbing, but even the bit outside between Rebecca and Dexter, and I think she's cutting like flowers or roses for like the table or something, and that is disturbing as well. So this whole family, like you said, it is very messed up. Now, cutting back to another relationship, Batista declares his love for Luetta, and at this point, I don't recall how this relationship ends. So I've only seen the first few seasons of Dexter 2 or 3 times, but I've never watched it more than once throughout the whole series. So I can't remember how this one works out. Now, Luetta won't say it back though, and she doesn't want to jinx things. She then says it anyway, so it's like, why? why build it up and then just do it? It
was a weird one, wasn't it? Yeah. My exact note. Yeah, I know you've said it exactly how it was, but the note that I wrote down was, Angel with the I love yous, but Maria is scared to say it back until she isn't, because it's like, oh, I don't want to say it. Oh no, I'm not sure. Oh, I love you. Oh, for fuck's sake, Maria. Jesus Christ, just get on with it. But anyway, let's get back to another complicated relationship. Rita kisses the next door neighbour, Elliot, and Masuka witnesses it.
This really shocked me, Andy, because I didn't remember this happening at all.
Do you know, I didn't either. I thought it was kind of coming from earlier episodes, because you see that he's obviously flirting with her, even if Rita's maybe not fully in understanding, but there's something there which shocked me as it was happening. But I have to say, in fairness to Rita, it was Elliot who initiated it.
Yeah, you're right, Andy. Now, cutting back to Arthur and the Mitchells' Thanksgiving meal with Dexter, Arthur makes everyone say what they are thankful for. And I always see this on TV programs and like American films where they do Thanksgiving and they do this, and I always wonder, does everyone actually do this or not? Now, this is very awkward as well, and very, very forced. Arthur says something thankful for his car, and then he confronts Jonah for not saying thankful. So he's essentially just having a little dig at Jonah there. And then Arthur then calls his wife a so you're going to have to get the beeper out a few times in this episode, Andy.
That's
just out of the blue.
A double bleep for that. I think that's the first C-bomb we've dropped on the rating room. So that's mark your calendars, ladies and gentlemen. Jay uttered the C-bomb on an episode of the rating room. I'm going to do it as well because I think the quote was to set the scene. Like you said, they're all around the table. They're saying what they're thankful for, and it's just the way. I can't remember what Sally says, but he just turns to her and says, "Shut up." I don't know why, but I just laughed so hard when he said that, and it was really sinister and really surprising. But I found it hilarious. So there you go. Double bleeps out for that one. Apologies for anyone offended, but grow up. And that leads to Jonah smashing the place up, and he picks up the ashes of Arthur's sister, throws them against the wall. Arthur attacks Jonah. It's on now. Dexter grabs hold of Arthur. I think he drags him into the kitchen, doesn't he? And he's about to kill him. He's got the knife in his hand, just as the wife and daughter arrive. Walk through the door. Very, very intense. This was a fantastic scene, I thought.
Yeah, it's definitely a highlight of this season, definitely. And we see Deb is talking to Cody as well, so we go back to that Thanksgiving meal, and she then starts to connect the dots and realizes that Christina said something about the murder scene that no one else should know. And this is the point then, which I suppose is quite obvious. I remembered who she is. Although actually, you don't know that she's who she is. You just know now that she's the one that killed Lundy and shot Deb. So you don't know who she is. But this is when I remembered everything then in terms of her. Yes,
this is where I remembered that she was the killer. Although, I didn't remember the killing. But then once it came to, she killed him. Thanksgiving dinner was awkward, wasn't it? Let's be honest. All round, just everyone's Thanksgiving was really awkward. And then we cut to Quinn leaving Christine's apartment. But then there's a knock at the door. I think Christine assumes that it's just Quinn. Maybe he's forgot something. And it's Arthur at the door. And Christine's response is simply, "Hi, Dad." Plot twist. Wow, now we know who she is. This is that was quite the cliffhanger ending. But despite all the drama and the chaos, still no kills for Dexter in this episode somehow.
Yeah, nearly kill, but no kills. Now, moving straight on, because this I think I watched this season, Andy, across 2 days, because I think I had some annual leave. I'd had a splits this season, and I'm sure it was 2 days, at most 3 days. So I just remember it's one of these TV programs. I think it was like 24 as well, where each episode kind of had not necessarily a cliffhanger, but it kind of had an ending that you think, I just watched one more, and then that one has an ending like that. I watched one more. So I just flew through this season. It was brilliant. And talking of 24 and Kiefer Sutherland, we've got episode 10, Lost Boys, as well. So Dexter has a shipping container now, and this is where he stashes his gear. So he's had to lose his apartment, and he's got a shipping container.
Yeah, now does Rita know about this, though? Because you know how she feels about Dexter lying.
True, Andy. Like you said earlier, they need to be a team or a partner, don't they? They can't have lies. Now, Arthur is following a woman and her 2 kids, and it looks like he's starting the routine again, which is a bit strange. And he's stalking them, and Dexter is stalking Arthur, and Dexter, though, loses Arthur. And then we cut a little bit later on, we see Arthur talking to this young boy.
Yes, Arthur kidnaps the young boy and then phones Dexter to tell him to keep away. Phones Kyle, tell him to keep away. Dexter, Kyle, goes to Arthur's house, talks to Jonah, and asks for his help.
And we see this young boy wakes up and Arthur calls him Arthur. So does that mean the young boy is Arthur now in this little twisted family routine? Now Arthur has set up this train track, and very nice of him, and the young boy is obviously very scared. He's not interested in this train track. And it looks like the Trinity Killer has 4 victims in his routine and not the 3 that Lundy thought of. So maybe he shouldn't be known as the Trinity Killer anymore.
What would be the 4? Because I know that you've got trilogy and quadrology. So would it be the quartet killer?
And this is why, Andy, I deliberately avoided saying that.
I thought way too long about this, and I never found the answer. But it's like Trinity plus 1. It's like one of those channels where an hour later you can watch the same program. So yeah, if his name was Dave, he could be Dave plus 1. But anyway, I amuse myself sometimes. Before any more listeners tune out, let's carry on with this episode. So Deb is being interviewed by Christine for a piece in the newspaper. She shows Christine photos of Lundy's dead body at the crime scene. Meanwhile, Batista is watching this because they're interviewing in the interrogation room, and he can tell that she's lying. You know, he knows what he's doing here. But it's an interesting setup because it's technically Deb being interviewed by Christine, but really it's Christine who is the one who's being watched.
Yeah, it's very interesting, this is, Andy. And Christine does phone Arthur, and she wants to meet up, but he's too busy. He's got a lot on, poor Arthur does. And he goes back to where he's keeping the young boy. So we don't know where the young boy's being kept. It looks like it's some kind of potential, like basement, something underground, but we don't know exactly where this young lad is kept.
Now, there's a list of empty houses that Dexter's got that I think could be potential sites for this as he's searching for the young boy and Arthur. He does come across a young boy and his mum in an empty house, but he also comes across an empty house that's not so empty because there's a couple taking advantage of the fact that there's no one around and just shagging in one of the bedrooms, and Dexter pops his head. Luckily they didn't see him, I don't think, otherwise they might think he's some sort of pervert. But I thought that was amusing when he just looked in the window and there's a couple there enjoying themselves, shall we say. But then he eventually goes back to Rita and the kids.
Yes, nice. I must have missed that bit, Andy. I don't recall that bit.
So I remembered it quite clearly.
So Deb does talk to Quinn about Christine, and and she manages to convince Quinn to hand over some of the DNA as well. And Quinn gives Deb Christine's toothbrush, and Deb takes it to Bazooka for testing as well. So the net is closing in on poor Christine.
It is indeed. Meanwhile, Arthur are having a bit of a heart-to-heart, and Arthur gives the boy some ice cream, but he's drugged it. Dexter gets a lead on Arthur's location, so maybe he's closing in. But back at the police station, Christine's DNA results are back. And now they know that she's related to Trinity. So again, the plot thickens a little bit further because now they know what we know.
They do. But she doesn't know what they know. Yet, I believe. Now, Dexter finally finds where Arthur's been hiding the boy, but they've already left the place. Now, Arthur does meet up with Christine, and she tells him about seeing Arthur in the bathtub with a woman as well, and the bath is full of blood. So, lots of things happen, and Christine is confused as well here.
Yeah, she tells her daddy that she knows about the killings and that she was the one that killed Lundy, and Arthur is really proud of his daughter. But then off she goes, and when she's out of sight, he calls her a stupid fucking
There's the beeping words in this episode, Andy. Now, Arthur is just about to bury the young boy in cement, but Dexter arrives, so just in time, Dexter saves the day. Now, they have a short fight here, and Dexter manages to pull the bag with the boy out of the cement. He is still alive, so he hasn't managed to complete his 4 kills. But when he kind of turns around, Arthur has disappeared.
Meanwhile, the police arrive at Christine's apartment and they take her away. Quinn is not happy about this, as you might imagine, but Christine has been arrested.
And that means episode 10, there's 0 kills. And moving on, you know, these episodes come in thick and fast now. And it's episode 11, Hello, Dexter Morgan. And the episode opens with Batista. He's interrogating Christine here, and they're trying to find out how is she related to the Trinity Killer.
Dexter's watching on at this point, and he's planning on giving a decoy name to Batista. He doesn't want anyone else finding who this person is, so he's got a plan in place for a decoy.
Yeah, and Arthur phones Dexter to find out why he hasn't gone to the police yet. And Dexter makes up kind of like an excuse here and says he's demanding $50,000 to keep quiet about this situation. So he's like extorting money from Arthur, or he's using it as a cover story.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Matthews calls Batista and LaGuerta into his office, and he suggests they should look for alternative career options because there's security footage of them kissing. He advises them of what the consequences are of lying to him and tells LaGuerta that she has a board review meeting. This is not looking good for Batista and LaGuerta. Meanwhile, Quinn and Deb are having a game of who's the biggest asshole when it comes to comparing their exes. That could be a good game show, that, couldn't it? And Rita then confesses to Dexter that her and Elliot shared a kiss. Well, that he mostly kissed her. And Dexter forgives her. But he forgives her a bit too quickly for Rita's liking. There's just no pleasing some people.
No, there's not pleasing. And I think going back to your point about the exes, I think Deb will always win in that situation, considering she's dated the ice truck killer in season 1. Now, Dexter is called out to another crime scene, and he finds out that the victim is called Kyle Butler. So it looks like the Trinity Killer is searching for Dexter. It reminds me of the Terminator in the first film, where he's working through the phone book to find Sarah Connor. Now, meanwhile, the police find out Christine is the Trinity Killer's daughter. Dun dun dun. Big reveal here. Now, Arthur realizes that the police have his daughter. Dexter, he's got so many plates spinning at the moment, and he's trying to make sure none of them smash. And we said at the beginning of the season, he's very tired. That is kind of taken as a given now, so that's not really mentioned much. That's another complication that he's got on. And Dexter's being called urgently to the office by Batista. But it turns out that he's just been asked to witness the marriage of Batista and LaGuerta. So a bit pointless, really, from Dexter's point of view. Nice for Batista and LaGuerta, though. But at the moment, Christine won't break in terms of the interrogation there. So she will not say how, well, essentially won't kind of share any more information about the Trinity Killer.
Yeah, Dexter wasn't happy about the urgent call to the office for something so trivial to him, but because he's got stuff to do. One of those is finally tracking down Stan the Man, the trucker. And Dexter quickly kills him, doesn't savour the moment. And there's a reason for that, because he's planting evidence in the truck to make it look like Stan is the Trinity Killer. So there is the aforementioned decoy. So will this plan work? I guess we will find out very soon.
Yeah, and we see Christine going back to Christine. We see that she phones Arthur, but he tells her not to phone again and hangs up on her. So he has enough on his plate at the moment with his kind of like new family, air quotes, and just trying to avoid the police, really, and Dexter.
Yeah, speaking of family, Dexter goes home to his family after planting more evidence at Stan's place. And when he gets home, he sees Elliot on the doorstep next door, goes over and punches him. And that really pleases Rita and really shows that Dexter cares. Also, to me, shows that she really just wanted to see a man get beat up. which is, it's not a good behavioural trait. And Rita, you disappoint me, Rita.
Poor Rita. Now, Laguetta and Batista tell the chief that they've got married. So, they've got together, they're separated, got together, and now they've got married. They explain the consequences to the chief of going after them, so he can't go after them. And he does back down here. And I must say, like I mentioned earlier on, I totally forgot about this kind of storyline. And I didn't recall this marriage part of the storyline either, so this completely surprised me.
Yeah, I don't remember that either, to be honest. I'm not sure I really remembered the relationship all that much. But the marriage part was definitely a wrinkle that I'd not remembered. Meanwhile, Arthur's watching the news and he sees that they've pinned the Trinity Killer murders on Stan, which is really confusing for him because obviously he knows who the Trinity Killer is, because that is him. Christine phones Arthur, wants to meet up, but he tells her that he's sorry that she was ever born. So this is really harsh on Christine.
Poor Christine. Now, that kind of prompts Christine to confess to Deb about what's happened, and she was the one that shot her and killed Lundy, and she asks for forgiveness. But Deb doesn't accept her forgiveness at all, and we see Christine kill herself by shooting herself in the head. So that's the end of Christine there.
Yeah, can I interject at this point?
Yes, go for it, mate.
Just if my wife is listening to this, she didn't have to have a tits out in every scene. She didn't have a tits out in this one.
No, she didn't, unfortunately. Now, Arthur follows Dexter to the police department, and he starts to piece together who Carl Butler really is. And he enters the police headquarters, he swipes a visitor badge from someone, and then he starts to have a look around.
Yeah, he sees a photo on the wall of the bowling team, including Dexter. Then he makes his way up to homicide. He's looking around the crime room, can see all the photos, and then he finally sees Dexter in the office, and there's that moment of realization where he sees Dexter and Dexter sees him, and they meet up, and he simply says, "Hello, Dexter Morgan." And I thought that was an incredible way to end the episode. An amazing cliffhanger, with one more episode to go. But in this episode, we have one kill, which leads us to the final episode of Season 4, Episode 12, The Getaway. Now, Arthur wants Dexter to disappear and leave him alone. Arthur's very smug with himself. He's kind of, game, set and match, isn't it, really? He's got the upper hand. But as Harry points out to Dexter, the messes are piling up.
Yeah, Harry, he should have just listened to Harry, really, Dexter. Harry did warn him throughout the series, really. Now, Dexter does clash with Quinn in the car park, and he rushes to follow Arthur. Now, he does get a phone call as well from Rita, and she wants to go on a honeymoon. Great, another vacation for her. And Dexter follows Arthur to this car park, and it looks like Arthur is going into a bank. So Dexter decides to lay in wait for Arthur. But we see the car with the broken wind mirror pull up as well, because while Dexter was rushing to follow Arthur, he accidentally knocked this wind mirror on this car off. And we see Dexter get the upper hand. He does drug Arthur and bundles him into the van. And it turns out Arthur's closed his bank account, so he looks like he was going to do a bit of a runner and disappear.
And speaking of runners, though, Dexter ran because he fled the scene of the car accident that you just mentioned, and he gets arrested for it. This is not good news for Dexter. Meanwhile, Deb figures out that the CI that she's been tracking down is related to the ice truck killer. So the plots are thickening everywhere.
Yeah, it's brilliant season. Now, the police figure out about the missing boys as well, and that Stan was not in some of the cities when the murders took place. Now, meanwhile, Deb is getting close to finding out about the CI as well, and discovers that she had two boys, Brian and Dexter.
Dexter finally manages to get back to the car park, after Rita's picked him up from the station. But Arthur has disappeared. Arthur has gone back home, and he's demanding money and jewellery from his family, and once again clashes with Jonah.
Poor Jonah. Now, Deb, meanwhile, is with the chief and is asking questions about Dexter, but also about Harry, her dad. Now, it turns out the chief knew about Brian being an ice truck killer and about the boys and the CI, so it seems like Harry and the chief were obviously friends, as that mentioned in previous seasons, but obviously they did share some other information with each other. Now, Arthur finds Dexter's address on the internet. It looks like Arthur is coming for Dexter now.
Yeah, this is getting really tense now. Deb is talking to the little boy who was kidnapped by Trinity, and he draws a picture of a logo. And the police find that a house is being built by this church organisation, and they dig up a bag containing a decomposed little boy. So the case overall is really starting to come to light now.
We see Arthur breaks into Dexter's old apartment and realises it's not his place, but it belongs to Deborah Morgan. So I suppose it was a good thing that he kept this old apartment, and it looks like Dexter maybe avoided being killed off by Arthur in this instance.
Yeah, his sloppiness when it comes to admin has actually helped him out in this case. The next morning, Dexter ships Rita and the kids off. They're on holiday. He'll meet them at a later date, so he's got a clear schedule now to find Arthur. Only problem is he's not the only one looking for Arthur, because the SWAT team arrive. So Dexter has to think quick, hides in the coffin. But Deb is quite suspicious of Dexter, and she queries him on how quickly he got there. But it was quick thinking by Dexter. I think he managed to get away with it, but he's kind of like, he's playing it a bit fast and loose here.
Yeah, he's definitely the precautions that he's had in this season hasn't been great, Andy. There's a few instances, and if I recall correctly, he's not wearing his kind of police vest, is he? And they kind of like have a go at him. I think Deb might have a go at him, tell him to get it on.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, so he's got to kind of talk his way out of that one.
So Deb is telling Dexter, though, after moaning at him about, turning up at the scene and stuff, about the CI, Harry, Brian as well. And it's all in the open now. So that could be a relief, I suppose. Meanwhile, we see Arthur's changed the colour of his car. So he's got it repaired, the one that Jonah smashed up earlier on. And he drives off. But back at the police headquarters, the FBI arrive and take over the case. And like you always see in American TV programs, always thank you for all of the work and cooperation here. And this is a very common trait in TV and film, I notice. I always wonder when you see it on TV programs if that is actually a real thing, in terms of the FBI always sweeping in and taking the credit.
Yeah, I wonder that as well, because it is quite a common thing, isn't it, where FBI just turn up at the last minute and take all the glory without actually doing any of the work. This is weird, and I don't know why I thought of this, but do you remember the adverts for the kitchen cleaner Flash? Like, Flash does the hard work so you don't have to. Maybe that's how the FBI operate as well. Sorry, just a random thought that came to my head. But I think the game is finally over now, because Dexter finally catches up to Arthur. It's all going to come to an end nicely. Arthur wakes up. He's in the kill room, surrounded by photos of his victims. And they talk for a bit. They talk about their differences, their similarities, and the demon that drives their urges. And a bit of some quotes. I think this is mainly from Arthur's side. He says, "Is this who you are?" To which Dexter replies, "Ta-da!" And then a couple of telling quotes from Arthur at this stage, and on first viewing, you probably just think, "Oh, this is him just accepting his fate," because he says, "It's all in God's plan. I accept that now." And he also says, "It's already over." Indeed.
Maybe he is a religious man, and the church thing wasn't always just a cover. Now, Dexter kills Arthur, aptly with the claw hammer, and he throws the bags into the ocean like he does with all his victims nowadays. And he's thinking about Rita, his family, and the future. So everything looks nice and rosy for Dexter.
Yeah, he's going to go and join them on their honeymoon, isn't he, very soon. He goes home, he's looking through some old photos on the wall, and he stands on a few of Harrison's toys. This is home now. Toys are scattered around the floor, that's fine. And he gets a phone message from Rita that's saying that she was delayed. So he rings her back. But he hears the phone. The phone is going off in the house. And then he hears Harrison crying. And that's when he goes to the bathroom and finds Rita dead in the bathtub.
I'm just gutted at this point, Andy. And so's Dexter. He takes Harrison away from the bathroom, and the credits roll. So a nice symbolism there of Harrison kind of going through the same thing that Dexter went through when he was a young boy. Yeah,
both born in blood, I guess, was that the phrase that was used. But I remember first time round watching it, and I was just utterly shocked. Could not believe that that's how that ended. Didn't see it coming at all. It was a really, really well done twist. And even watching it back second time, as we have done recently, still equally as amazing, equally as shocking. Just a really, really great way to end the episode and the season.
It is so. It honestly got. I remember the first time I watched it, and it was shocking. And I know Rita is hot. She's like really hot, but she is a really good character as well. And she's really like helped develop Dexter in terms of like how he acts around people, but also like relationships and everything. And I was thinking about this, and it kind of this episode and this season is kind of like Christmas, because you look forward to it because it's going to be an amazing experience, but then you're gutted because Christmas Day just comes and goes so quickly, and it's like these 12 episodes, like I said, I just did it in 2 or 3 days, and then when this happened, you're just like, oh, I'm just so disappointed with the ending. And like I mentioned earlier on, there were so many times, like in hindsight, that Dexter could have done something different that meant Rita would still be alive. And Andy, you've read the books. Did you? I can't remember if you said this already. Does she die like this?
I don't think she dies at all in the books.
I've got a feeling you've said that
serves
before
correctly
on the pod.
Because the first season of the show and the first book are basically the same, but not quite. It's been a while since I'm going to have to reread them, because they're fantastic books, except for one, which is a bit weird. But shall I give spoilers out that may or may not be spoilers, because I don't know what I can and can't remember? But or are you likely to read the books at any point, Jay?
I might. It is on my kind of like reading list at some point.
Okay, I won't go into too much detail then, but some of the characters that die in the TV show are not necessarily the same as characters that die in the books, I will say. Dexter and Rita having a child is a thing that happens. However, I believe they have a daughter rather than a son. So that's a little bit of artistic license there. We do have the Ice Truck Killer. We do have Dokes and that kind of tension between them two, which is really, really well done. But yeah, at some point the books go on a very different trajectory to the TV series, and I won't give away the ending. It's a very, very different ending overall in the books than it is in the series, but I absolutely love the way they ended the books. I will not say any more than that, but it's one of those where you go, that is a brilliant way to end the book. Just fantastic.
Nice. So he like wakes up and it was all a dream or something.
Well, it turns out it was aliens.
Good old aliens.
Give me a shout, Jay, if you want to borrow the books. Any listeners out there, if you want to borrow the books, I don't know you, so I can't lend them you. So I'm sorry, but I do know Jay, so I will lend them to him. Maybe we'll do them as our own audio version. We'll read them out in a really, really long episode. If anyone is really that desperate to hear our voices for many, many hours.
So, just to wrap things up, Andy, there was one kill in this episode.
And what a kill that was. So that brings us to the end. So let's put some stats onto these things as we do. And let's start with kill count, since that's where you ended off. So overall, for Season 4, there were only 5 kills by Dexter across the 12 episodes. So an average kill per episode of 0.42. So the lowest that we've had of the 4 seasons so far.
That does feel low, but I suppose even though Dexter doesn't kill as many, you've got Arthur keeping the old end up in terms of the kill count as well across the whole season. Now, moving on as always, the next ratings and rankings is the main villain. So I'm going to kick things off here. So I don't think this is surprising at all. I'm going to keep this short and sweet, Andy. Trinity Killer goes in at my number 1, and he displaces the Ice Truck Killer, who's moved down to 2. Miguel Prada goes down to 3. Lila West goes down to 4, and Jules King, aka the Skinner, goes to 5th. So I don't think that's surprising to anyone. But what about you, Andy?
I have to agree. I think the Trinity Killer is a tremendous villain, and goes in at my number 1 slot. So just to recap what I've got so far, I've got Trinity in at 1. Miguel Prado is my second favourite villain, followed by Lila West in at 3, then the Ice Truck Killer at 4, and then the Skinner in 5 so far. But a really, really well played role. You have to say John Lithgow plays the role fantastically well. It's weird because most mornings when I get up, my wife is watching Third Rock from the Sun, because they're shown on Channel 4 over in the UK every weekday morning. So to see him in that, and then see him in something like Dexter as the Trinity Killer, you couldn't get 2 more opposite roles. And he plays them both really, really well. So bravo to John Lithgow for a tremendous portrayal in Dexter.
Yeah, he's been in a few things, but the 3 main roles that I think of him from is the Third Rock from the Sun, where he is obviously a comedic role, and then this one in terms of the Trinity Killer, and then the other one is from memory Cliffhanger with Sylvester Stallone. He plays a villain in that one as well.
I don't remember him from that. I'm sure I've seen Cliffhanger, but it's been so long since I've seen it. I don't remember him being in it. I might have to revisit that at one point.
You might have to fact check me there, Andy, but I'm sure he's the leader of the villains as well. And I remember that because another bloke, I can't remember his name, I think it's something like Craig something, and he used to be in EastEnders as well. So I remember that.
Oh, I know who you mean. Yeah.
Cliffhanger. Big bloke, who I think went up against Grant Mitchell.
Yeah.
Phil Mitchell.
I'm going to do some live Googling because it's going to annoy me. I'll look for Craig Cliffhanger. That's not his name. Craig Fairbrass.
Yes. I recall now. Moving on in terms of the rankings of the seasons. Again, I don't think this is any surprise for the listeners out there, because I've been quite glowing in terms of this season across the previous 3 seasons, saying this is the one I've really been looking forward to. Just to recap, season 2 I got 8 out of 10, season 3 8 out of 10 in 3rd place, season 1 in 2nd place 9 out of 10, and for me it's a clear winner. This is so season 4 goes in straight at number 1, 10 out of 10. And I think from memory, this is the 2nd time I've done a 10 out of 10. And from memory, I think the first time was on our weekly show when when I rewatched and Andy watched for the first time Interstellar from memory. So not surprising at all. What about you, Andy?
Well, Interstellar. 10 out of 10. Do you remember what I gave Interstellar?
I do remember what you
3
gave.
out of 10.
Interstellar.
Yes, 3 out of 10. I'm sure you remember that well. Does that...
And do you know what, Andy?
Go
Sorry,
ahead.
Andy, to interrupt you. I've watched Interstellar twice since we've watched that. When we watched that episode, well, when we did the episode, I watched it a few weeks ago because my eldest wanted to watch it for the first time, and I was like, yes. And then I watched it again a couple of days ago because I was flicking through Now TV or one of the streaming platforms, and I saw it and I thought, oh, it's kind of like my comfort film, that is, so I'm going to watch it again. So, yeah, I've watched it at least 3 times already, and we're in May this year.
You are a sick man, Jay. A sick man. Like, you must have some really weird fetishes going on. I think I'd rather nail my balls to a step stool than watch Interstellar again. But, that's just me. Maybe I'm wrong, and you're right in your assessment. But if you've given that 10 out of 10 and you've given this 10 out of 10, then it doesn't really bode well for my rating, does it, for Dexter? Because clearly we're not going to agree.
Yes, interesting, Andy.
Only we are going to agree, because I've also given season 4 of Dexter 10 out of 10. I absolutely love this. First time round, I loved it. Second time round, I really wanted to. I was hoping it would be just as good, and it was. It was just really, really well done. The whole series, we talked about the kill count being so low. I don't think that took away from it at all. I think the chase, the excitement, the drama, the tension, it all just came together in like a perfect storm. It was really, really well done by everyone involved. The ending was just incredible. I mean, nobody could have seen that ending coming, surely. That was just, and it was so well done. Everything about this season was tremendous. So it goes in at the top spot, 10 out of 10 for me. And just to recap, I've given season 3 8 out of 10, which is my 4th place one so far. Then season 1 in 3rd place with 9 out of 10, followed by season 2 in 2nd place with 9 out of 10. Season 4, top of the pile, as things stand, 10 out of 10. So we should probably wrap things up for another week. Thank you everyone for listening. Really appreciate you tuning in and listening to our rating room ramblings about all things Dexter season 4.
Yeah, thank you. So if you do have any questions, so that could be about Dexter or any of the films that we watch, especially if we got watching Interstellar, or any other suggestions or TV programs or films that you think we should be watching and talking about, let us know via our social media channels as well. So we're on all the major ones, or by reaching out to us at theratingroom@gmail.com.
Check out our website, www.theratingroom.com. We've got all kinds of information, features, links to episodes on there. Jay has done a great job with the online team that we have in place. And you should also check out our YouTube channel at The Rating Room. We have full episodes, we have clips, we have trivia, we have all kinds of stuff that the two of us have done together, and we're also branching out into other things as well. So check out the YouTube channel. Lots of great content on there, as well as the normal podcast episodes that you get in the usual places.
And you can find us on all major social media sites, like I mentioned, by searching at theratingroom.com. At The Rating Room. Don't search for at theratingroom.com. And make sure you subscribe to all our channels to stay up to date with the latest news.
And coming up in the next few weeks and months and years, we're going to be doing various content on a solo basis. We have rapid reviews, we have the wrestling room, we have music, we have TV. We have all kinds of stuff that we're trialing out over the coming weeks and months. And Jay and I will be back together again before you know it. We've got some films in mind that we may want to talk about, but we've not finally nailed those down yet. But one thing we definitely will be talking about in the coming weeks is Dexter season 5, because we can't end the journey halfway through. So listen out in the coming weeks and months for more great content that only Jay and I can provide right here on The Rating Room.